it's bright and early. I figured I have the stuff now to do the next 10 metal bands you haven't heard but should, and I've kept a certain label waiting a little bit just while I waited for some other things to come in this video. I hope you enjoyed the video a few days ago talking about albums I deem perfect, more classic stuff. But now we're going to get back into some underground stuff. So first up we have the German speed thrash kind of power metal band EXE or XE. This album, Stricken by Might, is, I think, a bit of an underrated classic in the early, kind of pre-extreme but very intense metal world. Lots of killer guitar work, kind of bombastic drumming. If you're into those kinds of bands, like I talked about, oh shit, my brain has just gone blank, but like newer bands like Vulture and stuff. But these are the classics, the originators. There's definitely some similarities with the bands from Canada. The German bands maybe geared a bit more into the power metal vein with the kind of more epic vocals, but on here the vocals definitely still have that extreme kind of Teutonic savage delivery. I think this is just a killer piece of heavy metal which dips its toes into kind of speed, thrash, power, but just keeps everything on a right to the kind of jugular nearly 40 minutes I think of just pure heavy metal glory. Definitely one to check out. I love this album. Next we have 5 tapes. So I talked about Suffering Sights, which Burning Coffin very kindly sent me all the way from Chile. Now we have 5 more bands to talk about, which is the label. So sorry I kept you waiting, dude, to talk about these, but better late than never. So first up we have Nigromancia, which is, I'm pretty sure all of these bands are Chilean. Apologies if I'm wrong. But right off the bat, this is some killer death thrash, like going back to Sarcophago, Volcano, early Sepultura, the classic South American death thrash bands, Mortuary, that kind of stuff. If you dig those bands, I had a few of those, like Mortuary and stuff in a recent video. I know a lot of you commented saying about sort of Mexican and Brazilian death thrash is a big one you love. These Chileans absolutely nail it again with their South American brothers. These guys make some fierce death metal the late 80s way. So yeah, Nigromancia's Hidden Rituals, killer. You get 6 tracks, so I guess more of like an EP, but yeah, straight to the bone, killer stuff from those guys. Now we have something a bit more grotesque, which is Hallux Valgus, I think is how you would say that. Now these guys play more in the vein of Autopsy and Cyanide, more recent bands like Undergang, that very kind of almost bouncy drums with those drudging riffs. They're really disgusting sound, it's awesome. This is just real gross death metal. If you like your death metal on the sort of mid-tempo to slower side, this is probably going to appeal a bit more than the thrashier bands. Commending this label in terms of if these bands, as I believe, are all Chilean death metal, on the diversity between them, as we will get more into. Next we have Morbid Cruelty on this acidic green tape, which looks killer. You know, I just like it when labels make an effort to, you know, kind of color match stuff and make it look a bit more like a complete package rather than just making something for the sake of making it. Morbid Cruelty, now this leans more into the 90s American death metal, so I think Morbid Angel's early stuff, some Sadus, very, very kind of on the border. While I talked about the more death thrash sound, this is more on the cusp of when death metal really became death metal, but those very first breathing moments when it had a life of its own. Really cool album. If I look at Metal Archives, which I have open just in case I get a country wrong or something, which I still managed to do, so crucify me. But the top recommended band for these ones, Atomic Aggressor from Chile, definitely a killer band actually. I've talked about those guys before. But yeah, think death metal in its very first point where it kind of stepped out of thrash. This is where we're sat here. Now this band are a bit more of a mysterious entity because I haven't managed to find anything about them online. But because obviously to talk about this stuff, I listened to it a bunch to make sure I, you know, correctly say my thoughts on it. I would put Psychopath again in that element of, these are probably more 90s death metal, but there is still some 80s influence, as you can see from the artwork, which is really cool. This case is kind of cloudy coloured. I don't know what the score is with that. I think it has a larger inlay maybe. But anyway, really cool artwork, and yeah, just again, killer old school death metal, definitely worth a listen. And yeah, Psychopath, The Visions of Madness, if anyone knows more about this band, because I don't think they have a Metal Archives or Discogs entry before I at least put this on Discogs myself, just to enlist it, because I'm real OCD about cataloguing my stuff so I don't accidentally buy things twice. Despite having an incredible memory, when you have a bunch of records, best safe than sorry. Next, we have the last band, which is Putrid Evocation. I'm just going to pull up their page to make sure I'm right in saying that they're also from Chile, which they are. Excuse my hand, just jammed in your face. But yeah, these guys play much more in keeping with the early Seraphic Decay 7 inches and Relapse 7 inches, which is my point of reference because I've just finished reading both 7 Metal Inches and 7 Inches of Death. Killer books, by the way, definitely if you're into death metal history and 7-inch vinyl, obviously, check that one out, or those two out. They're really good books. And I was recently talking to the guy from 7 Metal Inches, and it turns out he likes Garden of Ice, which was a real nice surprise. So that's just going to plug my bragging rights there. But yeah, really cool guy, really well written books with tough riffs contributing as well with the 7 Inches of Death one. Anyway, Putrid Evocation, if you like those bands like Abhorrence, Incantation, Convulse, Rotravor, so sort of in between the Finnish and American bands, I guess. Imprecation would probably be another good one to mention, really killer band. Yeah, Putrid Evocation just have a really good, dirgy, kind of big but not kind of loose sound, if that makes sense. Just really good album. The artwork should imply it's a bit kind of strange and otherworldly. Really like that one as well. So yeah, thanks to Burning Coffin for sending me 5 tapes here, 6 total with Suffering Sights. I liked all of them, which is really nice. Obviously, when people send you stuff, there's always the risk if you listen to it and it's like, yeah. But thankfully, the people who have sent stuff for the channel, most of it is stuff I just buy myself. But when labels do send stuff, thankfully, it's cool labels like Burning Coffin. The people at Sure Shot Works who send me like stuff from like Dark Descent and 20 Buck Spin and stuff. So thankfully, I get to work with really cool people who don't make me listen to stuff that I hate and get to talk about really cool bands. So now we're going to Sweden for the next 3. The Swedish Invasion Festival here in the UK got announced fully for next year. Naturally, I bought my ticket right away as a big fan of Swedish death metal, and there were 3 bands on the bill that I really like but had nothing by, and these are those 3 bands. So first up we have Vanhelgd, which I probably butchered the pronunciation of because I'm not actually, I believe it means like desecrate or desecrated, something like that. My Swedish is very imperfect, so yeah, feel free to tell me I'd make a terrible Swedish person. This one was on Dark Descent and Pulverized Records. Really cool album. What's interesting about this is with the HM2 sound, which I'm not going to repeat how big of a fan I am of the guitars that use the HM2 pedal, but everyone is aware there can be a bit of a trap of playing in a certain style, like basic, like, you know, the really cool stuff with like D-beats and stuff. I don't really tire of that, but I know some people out there do. Don't kill this out of your list before you give it a chance, because it doesn't really fall into that. It's much more cavernous and ethereal and weird and occult, and there's these sort of almost avant-garde bits and these very black metal bits. It's very different. It's almost if you took a band like Grave Miasma or something like that and gave it a Swedeath overhaul. Really cool release. Stunning artwork. I like the way this is laid out. It just looks nice, which is always a plus. But first and foremost, the music, which rules. Now we have another Swedeath band, which is Under the Church, also on Pulverized Records. Now, these guys are probably familiar to a bunch of you, but I'm going to talk about them anyway because it's my video. This is the EP that came before the album, and they've just dropped a new EP, or it's coming out. I've reviewed it. It's really cool. Bit more almost speed metal in the new stuff, which is very interesting. But I'm going to talk about this slab of Swedish death metal, crushingly heavy. This is actually my favourite stuff from the band just because it sounds so damn evil and dirgy and just perfectly Swedish. Of course, members of Under the Church were in Nirvana 2002, which is a band I own nothing by, which really saddens me because they're a fucking awesome Swedish death metal band and I need to fix that. So thanks YouTube world for making me do this video and remind myself that I need some Nirvana 2002. But it should come as no surprise if you know that band that these guys have killer riffs, killer drums, evil vocals, and just put together a package of killer Swedish death metal. Definitely check out Under the Church. And if you're not already familiar, Nirvana 2002. Last of the Swedish bunch, also on Pulverized Records. So I hope that Roy is going to really love this video if he is watching. Hello. Now we have Wombath. Now this is, I guess, a bigger band because they have been going since the 90s. They have some really classic releases. But to me, this is the coolest one, personally. Like, their debut is a classic. There's not any off the top of my head that I don't like. But I think this is just half an hour of gut-ripping death metal. They really embrace the Swedish sound, whereas the debut, I think, almost has a more of a American sound. Which, you know, nothing wrong with that. I love American death metal. Those who follow me on Instagram, I did a big post of all my favourite American death metal records recently. But yeah, Wombath, this is just skull-cracking death metal from Sweden. Absolutely amazing. And these three make a real nice trilogy. And if you like these three bands and Dismember and Tiamat and Unleashed and Marduk playing, I think it was Dark Endless they're doing in full. Yeah, it was Dark Endless. I'm sure I'm right there. Yeah, if that sounds good to you, come to London for the Swedish Invasion next year because it's going to be awesome. And last, we have a release from Cavernous Records. Thank you to Chris for sending me he always sends me their newest releases as well, and once again, makes life easy when it's a label that puts out quality stuff. Now this is Wretched Inferno. Now if you like your death metal more on the brutal side, now I don't mean just kind of deathcore or slam before everyone, you know, starts disliking my video and crying at me in the comments. This is more in keeping with a sort of mix of bands like Fetid and Cerebral Rot, those kind of very slow, gross death metal bands, but with some more brutal elements from maybe early Malignancy. Like, if you're not familiar with their demo, that thing is crushingly heavy. It's a really cool demo. Some, you know, Cannibal and Suffocation for good mix. It does have those chuggy riffs, which I think are really cool when used correctly, which here they are, thankfully. I think there comes a point where they can become really grating for my own taste, but here they're used to accentuate a kind of heavy section, but with plenty of just killer riffing and elements involved. It's a half-an-hour album as well, so it sort of gets in, chews you up, spits you out, and then leaves in a way that just works really well. So yeah, if you like your death metal on the more brutal side, definitely check this one out. And that was 10 metal bands you haven't heard but should, part something. I've way lost count by now. I just rely on copy and pasting the title and adding the number next to it each time from the last one. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. To the dude who's mentioned that my intro was way too loud, I have only just figured out in the last couple videos how to adjust the volume levels in iMovie. That's the name of the software. So yeah, hopefully that's fixed for you guys. But yeah, thanks for drawing my attention to it. I wasn't just ignoring the comments, I just genuinely couldn't figure it out. But that should be fixed now, at least to my ear. Anyway, until next time, support these bands and labels, stay metal,